Hey! My God. Well, I think it's got all the makings of a rollicking good evening. I will have to give you some of the old bullshit, I'm afraid, because after all... Oh, I'm sorry, madam. I'll tell you, I'll have a Ferkel in my bag and see what I can find. As I say, it's a simple talk given by a simple boy to a simple lot of buggers, I'll tell you. I brought some of the jelly light with me. You'll notice it's very much like marzipan. Just a job for the mother-in-law's birthday cake. You get her to light the candle and you piddle off out quick. Sorry, dear, I keep forgetting. Somebody open the door for that lady, quick. And lock it. To detonate this, as I was trying to tell Northwich Rotary Club, you take your non-ferrous metal prodder in your right hand. Now, if you then insinuate it in the end of the gelignite, like so. One of these buggers at Northwich Rotary Club, one of the exec from the I say, Mr. Bates, why don't you use our non-ferrous metal prodder? Price 7 and 6pence. Well, he'd got all the bloody prices with him, you know. I think it sent him a purpose, you see. I said, aye, but your non-ferrous metal prodder's only like a piece of bent copper wire. I said, and by the time I've prodded him a couple hundred of these, and I have a hole in my hand as well as one in my jelly. I said, I'm sticking to the old screwdriver. I don't mind being blown up bottom bucket if I'm going to walk about with a hole in my hand. They start looking at you sideways, you know they are. Anyway, having prodded me jelly, we then take a piece of blue sump fuse. This is just a simple way, shall we say, and a plain azide detonator. And having done this, we stick the detonator on the end of the fuse like so, and crimp it on with the approved nippers. One of those things that the sergeant major say, if you hold it in your hand, it gets warm, it blows your bloody hand off. I had one silly twat say to me, is that why you've got a gold tooth? Can you imagine it, though? Christ, thick as two bloody sharp blanks, some of them. Anyway, and then we stuff it up the orifice like that, and now we have what you might call a blast bomb. And as I say, you would just say, for instance, we wanted a serving hatch in this wall. And what we do, we notice I point it towards the other stick of jelly. Like, we just imagine this was an 18-inch brick wall. Then you light the fuse burns down, the detonator explodes, this starts to burn about 4.5 miles a second, which is knocking on. The gelignite changes from a solid into a gas at that speed. It hits the other stick of gelignite, which of course acts as a booster, and we hit the wall with a pile-driving blow of gas about 5 miles a second. Of course, people say, well, how'd you go on underwater? I've never had it. Anyway, they get bloody wet, of course, but with this stuff, you will notice I will light the blue sump fuse and we will let it bubble and... Oh, Christ. We'll let it bubble and squeak around in here a bit. And there you are. Look at that. See that there? Now then, I was at one of these religious groups and said, he's a great clever bugger, this bait, so you can't change the water into wine. I said, how's that for a Guinness? It also takes the management 3 days to get the shit off that glass when it's finished. Yeah. And I can only say this. Oh, look at that. Now, you'll notice it come right the way around. There you are, you see. It'll start to sag when it's nearly finished, getting on the short stuff. In about half an hour's time, there's the most fiendish smell comes off that glass. It's evil. I can only describe it as being evil. It's like rat shit that's gone off, you know. It's bloody awful. It is really fiendish. And I was at the Pack Horse Hotel in Bolton, rather swish place, 3 dining rooms and a string quartet. At the Rotary Club, the men that wear the shoes. And I was demonstrating with this, you know, and I'd put it on the table, and after a bit, you know, the president said, he said, can I take that off you, you know, because the bloody stench was getting on his pudding a bit, you know. So he buggers off with this, and I thought he's gone and shoved it down the bog and pulled the chain on it, you see. Anyway, he was back in a minute. He said, oh, he said, that's better. I said, it is. It's fiendish, isn't it? He said, yes, you see, because... Anyway, about 3 days after, I got the letter from the manager of the Packhorse Hotel at Bolton. We know what it is and who it is, but for Christ's sake, tell us where it is, you know. And this silly bugger had obviously stuck it behind the piano somewhere. And this evil bloody smell, you know, was going through all the 3 dining rooms. And the bloke was playing the bloody cello, making his eyes water, you know. Oh, he was bloody awful. They, but as I say, some years ago, I'll have to tell you some of these things, I suppose. It's all part of the bloody treatment. When we were doing that Pudsey bypass, I'll never forget this, though, because it seemed so bloody funny to me. And it was Biltons. They were knocking that road through on that new Leeds Ring Road, and load of rock there was. It was down about 40 foot going between these fields, and they get this bloody rock. And then they got to knock these trenches out for the soakaway pipe either side of the dual carriageways, you know. So, knocking these bloody trenches out, doing about 20 yards at a time, you know, bang, and the machine was pulling the rock out, you see. And one of these big Irishmen was watching me, big, strong fella. He must have been about 6 foot, bloody 3, this fella. Huge fella, big Connemara man, I believe. They call him Big Mick from Connemara. He was a big fella. And he was watching me, and he mumbled something. He's a mighty fine fella that invented this stuff, he said. I said, aye. I said, there's a fella named Nobel. He's going back a bit now, about 1875. You know, I'll try to explain it to him. Anyway. Oh, went on blowing this rock, and we're getting down the bottom, and I was walking up, coming up for me bloody lid of tea and me bun, you know. This bloody shadow dropped across me, you know. I looked up, and there he was. Jesus Christ, you'd be a great man in a political organisation. Yeah. And I could tell he wasn't a Welsh nationalist, you know. Oh, dear. Political organisation. I said, how's that, Mick? He said, well, yeah, they had me going down at 3 o'clock in the morning from, where was it, somewhere round Armagh or somewhere, I've forgotten where it was. He said, to blow up a bus station. He said, and all he did was blow 3 bloody windows out. You know, he was quite peevish because I wouldn't go back with him and help him out, you know. And I did not do Nelson's column in Dublin. But some years ago, had a bloke not far from here, over by that Kraft cheese place from Middlewich. He said he got an island in the River Dane. He said, I would be obliged if you'd come and shift it out for me, lad. He said he'd brought one of them, when the river was up in the winter, he's brought one of them tree stumps down. He said, and then the river's gone down, it stuck right at the bottom of my field, he says. And all the muck's built up round it. He said, and it's caused a big island over about 3 years. He said, and the river's like branching out like this, and it's wearing my farm away. He said, half acre of my ground's floated off towards Northwich, you know, undermining the bloody banks, you know. He said, he's doing the same with my neighbour, across the bank, across the other side of the river, he said. He said, I'll tell you what, he said, if it comes any closer my way, he said, the electric board's going to lose one of them there pylons. He said, there'll be some blue lights, you know, Mr. Chappelle, when that happens. I can imagine about 30-odd thousand volts falling in the bloody river, you know. Bloody blue lights coming down the field. So, he said, can't they do anything about it? I said, I said, I'll come and blow it all out. I said, but it'll cost you about 20-odd bloody quid. He said, well, I said, what shall I do? I said, well, you get onto your mate and the electric board and I'll chuck about 7 quid in a bloody hat. I said, and I'll come and write it off. So they did. I went up there, took a £120 weight of explosive. Took them 2-pound sticks, dug it all in the iron, linked it all up. Well, I set this off and there was such a bloody clapper, you know. Boom! A shower of shit blew up in the air and it blew off towards Biley somewhere, you know. And he looked at me, he said, hey, lad, he said, I'm glad to see he's gone to my neighbour. Well, They removed the island, all right, and they reckon the River Dane is deeper there than it is anywhere now between bloody Congleton and Northwich. Made a lovely swimming pool for the kids. Whee, that's a grand job there. Come into the house and we'll pay thee. One of the more benevolent ones you get, you know. So we went in, he gave me this bloody tenner, and we had a cup of tea, and I got in my old motor and come down his drive. And as I was coming down the drive, you know, when you pass a place, you think you've seen it, and you think, Christ, that's changed, or something. As I come down, I looked at this pub, and I thought, I swear that was a black and white pub when I came up, you know, you can't quite place it. Because the bloody thing had changed colour, you see. It was like a dirty, bloody, streaky, mahogany, brown shit colour. And the funny part about it was a bloke with a newly varnished cattle wagon on the car park, which was then the same colour as the pub. I thought, there's a coincidence. A bloody cattle wagon and a pub, the same colour. You know. Whistling, the sun had come out, you know. But the landlord, this bloke had gone in, it was Tommy Leach, he'd got in for a bloody drink. And then it suddenly started going dark. And they'd run out because the landlord said, it's a total eclipse of the sun. He said, my bloody chickens will go to roost, you know. I shall have to go round the back and lock the buggers up, you know. They'd run out because they'd heard the crack of doom. So it said, Christ, the Philistines are upon us. They'd run out, you see. When they got outside, the sun was shining. They couldn't understand it for a minute. Till I got down the end, trying to get a bit of wheel grip to get across the road. And bloody Tommy Leach saw me. He said, that's him. That's the bugger there, he said. It's him for £1, you know. The hand was in the pocket. So I went across the road. I see you with the landlord. Yes, I am. Look at me pub. Look at me bloody pub. I said, well, what do you reckon? An act of God? You know. I'm not having that. I'm not having that, he said. Oh, I thought we'll have to humour this bugger a bit, you know. Who's for a drink? You know. So we all go back in again. By this time, he switched all the lights on. You know. We go back in again. I thought, get him something expensive, like a small rum, you know. Anyway, after about half an hour, the bugger had mellowed a bit, you know. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do with you. He said, I've got that bit of land across the road. He said, I've got a dirty old pit in it. He said, I want you here when the wind's in the other direction and clean my pit out. He said, you can blow all the shit all over Wychley's house and see how he likes it. It shows how these jobs snowball, doesn't it? But I think one of the funniest things I seen was that day when old, what's his name, old Newport sent for me, go and blow his 5 tree roots up. Up by Malpas, by the crossroads there, by Chumley Schools. And just up on the left-hand side, turn left at Chumley Schools. On the right-hand side, there's a big farmhouse and a raised drive. Big white gates, you know, on the main Whitchurch Road. Just at the back of there is Chumley Cover. Anyway, this particular time, I old Newport wanted me to blow these 5 tree roots up. So when I got up there, I said, where are they? He said, they're just down the end of my drive. They're alongside the main road, he said, just in the field, right across the end of my drive. They're only about 5 or 6 yards in the field, he says. I said, how many are they? He said, 5. I said, well, what do you want them out for? Ooh, lad, he said, I can get a dozen rows of carrots in there. Aye, I think the old bugger thinks he's going to live forever. Anyway, I had a bit of tooting going on in the cover at the back, you know. And I said to him, are they hunting this morning? He said, I don't know, I've not seen any horse boxes. He said, perhaps they cubbing. Because they catch a few cubs, you know, and slit the pads, give some bugger else's hounds a chase. So bad, isn't it? So, anyway, shove them in a bag. So, get down there, and I said, now look here, I said, I'll put the explosive under the 5 tree stumps, I said, and now you'll have to go up the main road and don't let anybody come past you. I'll light the fuses and nip down the other side just to keep the road clear, because we wouldn't like to scratch anybody's motor with half hundredweight tree roof. You know what I mean? They don't like it. You can accuse them of stealing the firewood, you know, especially if it lands straight in his bloody boot, you know. So, so he goes up the road then and stood in the middle of the road like this here, nothing to come past him. I lit the fuse, he goes down the other side, see, stood in the road, and bloke comes up, and one of those little Morris Minors, see, stop. What's up, he said, what's up? I said, oh, I said, there'll be 5 explosions just on the left-hand side of the road up there. I said, might chuck a bit of wood on the road, we don't want to clobberise your motor, you see. Oh, I like to see that. He gets out and he looks up the road. Hey, look there, he says. And through the back of old Newport stackyard and straight down his drive come a bloody great dog fox. Got a lovely brush on it, you know. About 2 foot long it was. Streaming out behind him, it fled down the bloody drive, straight out through his front gate, straight through the edge, right where my 3 roots were, you know. Boom, up went the first root, and it lifted its brush up, and it shot like a bat out of hell for bloody Nantwich, you know. Streaked across this field after the fox come 52 bloody hounds. Ooh. And the blood's a bit close with them, you know. And they don't like these bags. They don't like a clap of thunder. They didn't like this bloody lot. They went like bloody mice. Well, of course, after the hounds, tally-ho, gone away, do-do-do-do-do. I come the bloody hunt, you see. And they're not using Ferodo yet, you know. Ah. Boom, boom, boom. The other bloody 4 went off, and the last one's always a good one. You see. By God, they were putting the feet down like bloody ready money, you know. I never seen horses backpedal. The nostrils was flared, you know. Unhorsed, they call it. Chucked off all over the bloody field. That do at the National was nothing compared. It was nothing compared with this. Never seen such bloody pandemonium in your life. I thought, Christ, that's done it. Me, a bloody peasant. They'll have me tied to the gun carriage wheel. 16 bloody lashes and the salt rubbed in. You know, you filthy bloody peasant, how dare you stop our sport. I thought, Christ, keep humble, Bates. They'll flog you. And no more pictures in the Cheshire Life either. Oh, I got up. I thought, wait for it, you know. Got me shovel in my hand. And sure enough, it appeared. 17 bloody hands if it was an inch. A great big iron grey it was. And its bloody nostrils, you could have stuffed that pint pot up in. I'll tell you. And the steam was coming out. I thought, is it a horse or is it a bloody dragon? You know. And on his back sat the master and he had his stirrup cup, you know. And I think he'd had some bugger else's as well. They got a face like the bloody harvest moon. I forget who it was at that time, but he was that bloody far back I couldn't understand him. What a bloody hell do you think I'm playing at? You've ruined my day, you've ruined my day! Yes! I thought he's going to cry! Oh, bloody hell! But I thought, don't say anything, mate, I watched it. Bloody hand was on the humane killer. I thought this sod's going to have me put down, you know? Yeah. Oh, bloody hell! Oh, Christ, it was bloody wicked. You ruined my day. They bloody shoot you know. You've got to be careful. I thought, humour him. 3 weeks after, I went up to Noman's Heath, which is the other side there, you know, go to the other side, Chumley, over towards Malpas. It must be 5 miles away, and over 2 hills. I go to blow 14 tree loose up at Henry bed. When I get there, and he said, hey, mate, look what I've got. And he opens this loose box, and there's 2 hounds in it. He said, hey, they come here 3 weeks ago, they want to go home. I said, you wouldn't go if you had 10 bags of jelly up your ass. They want to go home. He said, it cost me £2 a week to feed the buggers. I said, do you want one? Oh, you're bloody joking. You want one, oh God. Oh dear. Are there any questions as far as we've gone? I must tell you one just before the... Well, I must tell him this one. And I got this card. Dear sir, will you come and blow 3 beech trees up for me on Saturday morning, you see? So I answered the summons. And I went up to the Wall Farm at Oulton Park. You know where the racing circuit is now. And when I got there, this gentleman was there with another gentleman. He said, I hope you don't mind coming on Saturday morning, Mr. Bates. I said, not at all. I work 8 days a week. You see? He didn't see the bloody point. He said, well, as a matter of fact, my friend's over for the weekend. He'd never seen anything blown up. I thought, oh dear. What a bloody shame. You do it, don't see your man, you don't tell him that. Anyway, you've got to look pleasant. So I said, oh dear, oh yes, hasn't he? Oh, well, we'll have to remedy that straight away. He said, well, he said, I've got 3 large beech trees, and he said, and I've had permission to remove them. You see, he said, I rent that ground in Oulton Park. Now, this was just before it was turned into a racing track. It wasn't many months before. So I said, all right then, let us go into the park, gentlemen. So this pair of buggers goes into the park and lets me lummoxing £50 weight of bloody gelignite on my bloody shoulder and me shovel and me bag of gubbins and costing. Anyway, we get into the park, and when we get in there, there's 3 bloody great beech trees, and they must have been about 20-odd ton of timber in each one. They were big. And it was at the time before the rabbits had myxomatosis, because... I tell you this because the little buggers had burrowed underneath the 3 trees, you see. I'd only got to enlarge the orifice with my rabbiting tool, you see, and stuff the gelignite underneath. And also at that time there was 30 huts full of these displaced persons, Polish refugees and God knows what, in Oulton Park, where the paddock area is now. So once we got in there, I tell you this, and we put in the explosive underneath the tree. I thought, well, I'll give him some stick, saying his friend never seen him blown up. I should have about £15 weight underneath each one, because at that time, if you remember, the Yanks weren't getting theirs off the ground. Anyway, so stuffed plenty of explosive underneath, you see, and I gave them my professional patter. How do you want them, gents? All at once or one at a time? So Fern's friend says, one at a time, it'll last longer, you know. You a little devil he were, you know. Oh, just help me. Oh, look there, how disgusting. Looking down the field, and here's Oulton Park Pool and the stream, and there's a steep bank up onto the paddock area. Well, those huts were up there then. Here's this couple on this side of this bloody bank. Springtime of the year, you know, in what they call a compromising position. Well, we could only see his bottom and her knee. And I think a little hint of jealousy was creeping in. Because old Fern says, set them off now, let's see what happens. I thought you daft old bugger, there's only 2 things that can happen. Either she's a mother or she's a dead bird, you know. So we're whispering like 3 bloody schoolboys and we're 200 yards away. All right, 5 seconds between each one, you know. Lit the fuses and we scampered off and got behind this bloody big oak tree. They come to watch things blown up, they forgot about. They were watching this bloody couple. And I do believe he was on the short strokes, you know, and all of a sudden, whoo, the first tree goes up. Well, he leapt up, rolled off, call it what you will, goes up the bank pulling his bloody slacks up. Left her semi-recumbent, you know, on this tusky grass, draws on the deck shell pink, you see. What would she do? Pick them up and put them on, you know. I think in the excitement, and when they go back properly dressed into the camp, because they're only a few yards away, as you might say, down this back, she starts putting the buggers on. Well, that slope is about 1 in 3 up there, you know. And I think in her excitement, she got 2 legs down 1, you know, because they were stuck at a knee joint. And the other bloody tree goes up. Whoa! Well, she come bottom over bloody apex. Top to bottom. Fernald says, it's like a shot rabbit, roll straight down the bloody bank. Fernald says, you've hit her. I said, I've not touched her. He said, she'll drown if she goes in the brook. He said, it's deep there. I said, she will with the bloody legs tied together. Anyway, she pulled up about 10 foot short of the deep end, obviously with a torn gusset, because what she got there, she soon pulled like a piece of bloody string. Starts going back up this bank, the other bloody tree goes up. Whoa! Fled over the top, all Fernald's friends the one who made me laugh. He was rolling over on the ground, one of these blokes that cries when he laughs, you know, going bloody purple, ingrowing hair, he like chuckles, you know, he doesn't make much noise, but, you know, the tears running down his face. There's Fernald on one knee, slapping his face, saying, it's all right, old chap, she's gone. You can come out now, you know. Oh, bloody hell. Anyway, a week or 2 after, Howard Wright sent for me. He said, hey, go and blow some tree roots up round old pit hole we're going to shove in. Well, he was one of the starters of Alton Park, him and 1 or 2 more. And he said, come and blow these roots up. And when I got up there, he said, by the way, he said, we want you in Alton Park in a week or 2. We're going to have a racing track down there. We've had permission. He said, we want you to blow some of the trees up, get the things out of the way so we can shove the bulldozer around and get the first track in. I said, oh, don't talk to me about Alton Park, Howard. I said, we had a race around there the Saturday morning. I said, young man won't be a short head, you know. I said, what was that? I said, I told him. He said, hey, just what we want, look here. He said, he showed me the plan. He said, we've got Druid's Corner there, Lodge Corner there, Old Hall Corner there. He said, we didn't know what to call that bit. That's it. He said, Knickerbrook. Still call him bloody Knickerbrook. Hey, guys, no. No, I was going to tell him about... No, it was the time we used to go and blow this salt up, you know, at Ventureborough Gravener, the works manager. And he got me up there, and he used to dump the salt in the warehouses. You know, they get about 1,000 ton in those bloody big warehouses. And it used to set pretty hard, and the councils want it in a hurry in the winter. Because at that time, they didn't used to think ahead, like they do now. And they wanted it all in a sweat. As soon as there's a bit of bloody frost, oh, we want, you know, 500 ton, and somebody else wanted 500 ton, and they couldn't. So it set in these warehouses, and they had to chop it down and then shovel it into these hoppers to put on these lorries, you see, on these belt things, you see. And they found out that I could go there with a bit of a draining tool and put a shot or 2 in it and loosen it up a bloody sight quicker. They shoveled that loose out and then put about 6 more, bump, 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 and they got 200 ton loose. And this worked like a charm, and I used to go to all these salt works, different ones, you know. And I'd been in digs over at Nottingham, driving a heading underneath 6 pair of houses, tunnelling, you know. I was lodging in the end house. I was in there. Yeah, I been in digs there. I couldn't blow his salt up. When I come back, you know, where the hell have you been? I said, I've been in digs near Nottingham. They said, I can see you, look at your eyes. Anyway, he said, you better come here and blow the bloody salt up, he says. We've had one of these quarrymen from Wales to blow it out. He said, but I don't think it's all gone off. It didn't seem to go like when you did it. And he's run off down the road screaming Yaki Dar, and he's run off back into Welsh Wales and left us with this bloody lot here. He said, go and have a circle round, a circle. Have a circle round and see if you can find it. I said, you'll find it quick enough if you a bloke start shoveling that bloody salt. I said, if they hit one of those detonators with a shovel, I said, he'll want a new shovel anyway. Of course, Graven, he said, aye, and those bloody shovels are expensive. So he said, have a firkle, see if you can find it. Well, I firkled, and I found 6 bloody lots that hadn't gone off. So we had to flop it in, and it was dangerous, though, I'm not bloody kidding. They were using the copper detonator, electrical detonator. A couple of the bloody salt was getting at them, and they were in a bad state. So I put them all in boxes, take it with you when you go. I said, take it with me, be buggered. He said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I know what I'd like to do with it. He said, well, I said, if there's a pit hole on the work somewhere, we'll shove it in the bottom of a pit and blow it up and watch the rainbow, the water go. He said, we haven't got a pit hole. He said, there's a canal at the bottom. I said, well, that'll do. It'll kill the blast and we'll just get a spout of water, you see. The bloody bridge is up there about 200 yards. And a canal along the bottom of his work. See, I said, I'll flop it in the cut, and I said, it'll stop the boats grounding on the scale that you shovel in when the British waterways aren't looking. You know? So don't be bloody cheeky. Anyway, we got a box and put a bit of good in, and got a bit of fuse, cut it off, and lit it, and tossed it in the canal. It's a fair old mine, enough to lift a bloody tank up, you know. A fair thrutch of it. I'm watching these bloody bubbles. All of a sudden, a Graven lets out a scream. Ah! Under the bridge, come pop, 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 pop. 22.5 ton of bloody coal, you know. The old man on the tiller, everything forward and trust in the Lord, you know. Up the bloody hills with the mine in the cut, running down the bank, shouting, go back! Oh, that's a bloody Shelley. Have you ever seen one turn around and go back? They're a bit long for that. Go bloody daft thing to say, go back. I was running after him shouting, abandon ship, because you don't know. He might have done his time on the Manchester Ship Canal, you see. What's up, he says, you know, there on the old tiller. Gravener says, a mine, because he had to get technical. A mine in the cut. Of the dynamite in the canal. Dynamite. Daft pair of buggers, he says. I said, chuck it in reverse, you know. There he is, and it's shuddering and juddering. Just then his missus comes up, you know, those latches, this bloody pan full of sausages. Hey, up, your dinner's ready. You know, smell this and come down, you know. Luring him. Of course, after all, you know, when you're pushing 65, sausages is the only thing that'll bring you down. Anyway, you'll know. He said, go down, he said. He sent it closer to it, the daft old bugger. The bloody silly. I thought, Christ, you're not going to make sure of her having 20 ton of coal on her back as well, you know. I thought, good God, what's going to happen now? Anyway, this bloody lot, he went up, only about 15 yards in front of the boat, boom, like this, in a few waves, and it washed a bit of coal off. He looked at me, you daft pair of buggers, what do you think you're doing? Gravener says, give him 10 bob. I said, you give him 10 bob. He's got more bloody money than I've got. He said, can you just imagine it as a can? Me and you in a rubber suit shoveling that coal off the bottom of the cut. With a big pan shovel, 2 of water and 1 of coal, you know. For a bloody fortnight, starved to death, you know. He said, no, he said, it's Northwich newspaper. He said, it's a bugger here. He said, that'd have been it next week, U-boat sighted at Wincham. What a bloody imagination that man had got. Oh, Christ. Things like that soon get about. And then I was approached by this bugger. Big fella he was. Used to lean well back on his pelvis. I was at a crew cattle auction he was, and he come up to me, stuck his bloody belly out like it, and he had got these moleskin trousers with cross pockets, you know. Like a naval occasion it was. Hey, lad, can I have a word with you? You know, like I say, rocking back and two, like. I've never seen a bloke lean so far back without falling on his ass. But it suddenly occurred to him, with these bloody cross pockets, you see. He'd obviously had no toys as a child. He said, do you know, you know, master, he said, I've had a very nasty letter from the council. So I said, what's your trouble, master? He said, well, he said, it's like my pit, it's like our septic tank, you see. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, it's hole at the back of the farm, he said. And where they used to dig the marl out in the old days to grow the wheat on the field, they used to dig these bloody holes out the ground, you know, to get the marl. And they used to go down in a spile, some of the buggers are 25 foot deep. You see, they used to spread it on top before they had these fancy fertilisers. Well, they spread this marl and they used to grow the wheat well. Well, they got one of these holes at the back of his farm, and when they'd modernised his bloody farmhouse about 1875, they turned all the drains in his hole. So he was, you know, like one better than most of it. He got his own shithole. But the trouble was, we'd had one of our bloody summers, you see. We had quite a drop of bloody water, and his level had come up. He said, well, here, lad, he said, read it for thyself. And he gave me this letter from Backford Hall, you know, there at Cheshire County Council, you see. And the gist of the letter was, keep your shit to yourself. What had happened, it had the bloody rain and his level had come up and the effluent was percolating out and going down this ditch and into that bloody stream at the bottom, you know. Only the bottom here, between here and Shambach, you know. And as it was going under the bridge, the methane gas was putting the roadman asleep on the end of his bloody rug. You see? And the Cheshire County Council won't go on and having their roadman put to sleep with the shit out of his pit. So it was a case of lower your level or else. He said, you know, master, he said, I've had one of them there machines with the big iron bucket. He said, he chucks it in, he said, and he drags it out all right, but it slithers back. I didn't like the way he said bloody slithers, you know. He said, I wonder if you could bring some of that there stuff and blew it out, he said. And in the next breath, he said, where's your goo? Where's your goo? I thought it was a technical bloody question, if you like. I said, it vaporises it. I said, and furthermore, there's no radioactive fallout. What goes up's got to come down. It's all pure shit, you know. Anyway, I said, and besides, I said, I shall need a 4-6 on the Beaufort scale. Oh, I took well, this morning we got a good wind blowing, a day like it's been today, you know. There was a fair wind blowing, nice day it was. And I went up there, hey, laddies, I'm glad to see thee. And goes up there, I said, well, let's have a look at it. By Christ, when I saw it, oh dear, it was about twice the air of this room, and the top of it was like a bloody meringue. There was a crust on it, you know. And I'd taken this pike'll in my way to poke the, you know, to hold the stuff up and drop it in. Bloody hell. I had to poke it, you know, and it was like a leathery crust. And when you got through it, it kind of sneered at you. The bloody thing was alive. And a green bubble, you know. So and I used him £5 sticks, you know, to chuck them up in the air with the detonating cord on. Chuck them up about 10 foot to let them plop through it. That's the bloody things that are stuck on the top. And as it went through, glunk, the bloody thing chuckled. It was like, it thought I was feeding it. It was like a bloody Quatermass experiment. Oh, there was some bloody right-o hobgoblins in there. A mouthful of that and it wasn't through you in 12 hours, you'd have bloody dead, and I'll tell you. Anyway, put all the... I thought, I'll give it some stick. I'll stir the shit up here, you know. Give £90 weight in. Got a bloody great load in. I thought, yes, there'll be a shower of shit over Cheshire today. Got it all in, you know, and I'm going to set it up. I said, you better come with me up this side. He said, well, what about him down there, he said. And there's a bloke down the field doing a bit of edge brushing, you know. She loves me not, you know. Anyway. Turns out to be one of these ex-Italian prisoners of war, because there was quite a few about then, you know. Of course, I didn't know this. So he said, will you go down the field and tell him. I said, aye. I said, he'll have to get out the way, he'll get the lot down there. I went down the field, I said to this bloke, I said, hey, you've heard about the shower of shit over Shropshire? We're having one over Cheshire today, you know. For a change, you know, make the funny, laugh it up with the peasants, you see. Well, we turn around, Timmerly-Cavallo, Emirate, Emirate, you know how they are. Oh, Christ, I thought it's too good to miss. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, I said, you're all right, Jack, you stay. Oh, boy. Oh, I'd never done 100 yards in 10 seconds. In gumboots before, by Christ, I must have come close on it that day. Shot back up the field, you know. I said, very funny fella, that Master. Very funny fella, Master Bay. Anyhow, I lit this bit of fuse and we goes up the field. By God, then it took off. Full bloody chat. Whoom! Right to Blackpool Tower, no messing. And it races up into the air, then it mushroomed out, then the bloody wind hit it, then this bugger starts to run. You cannot run at 30 miles an hour with clogs on the ploughed field. And he disappeared in this black haze of human, cow, and pig shit. It's a fair mixture, you know. All the drains went into this hole, and it's been in there some years, you know. Bloody ripe. Good God. Well, it kind of, we lost him. You know? He was lost to us. And then it slowly went from a black to a grey, and we saw this shadowy figure uncurling itself from the deck. Only when he lifted his arms, he got bloody gossamer wings. Like those things the kids dip in a basket and blow the bubbles through, you know. I thought, good God, it Clem Sam, the Birdman. You know. Only this was pig shit, you know. Oh, it was terrible, and it's very sour smell, you know. Do you know, Master Mate, I've been waiting for something like that to happen to that bugger for 2 years. They get bloody silly, don't they? That was the job. I did a bit of a road winding job for a firm at Frodsham. I'm knocking this bloody rock, you know, when you go through Frodsham by that swing bridge. And there was a 45-degree bastard rock, and I blew that for a firm. I remember because the Wesleyan Chapel was across the road. He said, don't upset them buggers. They'll have us all out, you know. So I got to be very careful. I didn't want to knock a slate off. And I think it was the anniversary the following week, you know upset them. Anyway, it's all right for you bloody laughing. But I was blowing this rock, I tell you. Anyway, the director of this firm came. They always get bloody greedy, don't they? When you've got 5 minutes, go over to Appleton. It's bloody Warrington. From Frodsham took 5 minutes, you see. He said, and we've hit this rock, this sandstone. You see, it gets over there. Oh, bloody great field it is. Oh, it must have been about 15 acre, 20 acre. And there they are, they all dotted over this field, these blokes down these trenches about this deep, having a bit of a bloody chop and whatnot with these picks and a bit of a shovel, you know. So I saw the foreman. I said, he sent me to come and blow the rock. Where is it? Oh, we've got them in these. He said, it's outcropping in these little trenches, you know. Oh, he said, there's some in that one there. He said, well, this bloke had been chopping and hacking and buggering around and looking at it and having a bloody smoke up and it'd go away, you know. And, hoping some bugger would pinch it, you see. Anyway, put a bit on, you know, bang, and it reduced it to sandstone. And they had to shovel the sand out. The sandstone. Lovely. So, look, I've got a bit in my trench. So we go up there, and he's got a bit there. Bang, shovel the sand out. Well, come about 11:30, they've thrown the bloody picks away. No more thick wrists for us, you know. Thumping. This bloody idiot will blow anything up, you know. Bloke can have a bit about as big as that bloody bag. I've got a bit in mine, you know, bang. Shovel 2 shovelfuls of bloody sand out, you see. About 11:45, bloke said, I've got a bit of rock for you. I said, all right, so I got me bag of gubbins and my shovel, and we walked across the road into Appleton Cemetery. I thought, well, it's not far off bloody dinner time. I said, haven't they got an effluent on the job, to get in? I said, are they brewing up in here? He said, no. He said, I don't work for that firm. I said, who are you? He said, I'm the grave digger. He said, and the last 8 graves have been a proper bugger, he says. I've hit this sandstone, it had gone through the graveyard at the top end. Of course, poor old lad, was about 60 odd, he wasn't too energetic. Anyway, he said, I said, well, what's to do? He said, he's got to be down at 3 o'clock. I said, has he now? He said, aye. He said, well, what I've been doing before, I've been chopping these graves out, backfilling them with the loose, and when somebody died, I shovel the loose out and down with them. Of course, I've had about a fortnight to get one out. He said, I think there's been a lot of them go all at once. Been a bit of an epidemic or something, So, he said, and they've overgot me a bit. A bit? Bloody hell, I said, let's have a look at it. He was down about this far. He'd only got the turf off the top. He was on solid bloody rock. I thought, here's one bugger they'll have to build up Western style. With a few azaleas or whatever. I said, how do you want him? I meant, keep it level. Something to that. Anything to get away with it. A silly old bugger said to me, he said he wanted 2'10" across the shoulders. And 1'9" at the, he wanted the shape of the bloody box. I said, you'll have it bloody oblong and that's all you'll get, You'll have it 3 foot wide and buggy you, Well, I start thumping this bloody stuff. He's got to be down at 3 o'clock. Well, I've got to work like a bloody idiot all through dinner. Had no bloody tea, no cup of tea and out. And about 2 o'clock, I was down about 5 foot and I was peeping over the edge, I thought, Christ, I'm down here before my time anyway. Some bugger puts his head over the fence. Now then, Batesy, don't wake the others up, If we'd have had a bloody union, they'd have gone on strike, I'll tell you. Anyway, we got him down. They come and load him down. I thought, my God, he'll keep down there, bloody solid rock. But I remember, they're crafty lot of buggies. The bigger the firm, they say the bigger the what's it at the top. They had a great bit of fun widening the A5 in a certain county, which of course has to remain nameless. But I was working for a big firm. And then one of the directors of the firm goes, hey, Batesy, there's 17 trees, they've got to go. He says, we can't dig them up. All alongside of the road here, right alongside the A5, because the A5 got to be widened. There were 17, those great big wych elms, huge trees. And they were like maybe one here, and then one 20 yards, and then there may be 4 in a row, and then another one about another 40 yards. They stretch for about, over a quarter of a mile, all the way along. 17 of them. He said, but the county surveyor says, no blasting. I said, well, what the hell do you want me here for, then? He said, well, we want you to blow them up. I said, now, who's lumbering who with what? He said, well, I'll tell you what we do. I take him to lunch. You see? He said, now, that doesn't give you much time. When we come back, he had his 2 or 3 brandies and his cigar. He said, when we come back, I want the lot out. He said, then we argue about it. It's one way. I said, all right. So they went about 11:45. Well, we had a gang of blokes. I said, are you ready? Stand by your shovels. They're all ready. Muffle shovels, of course. This is a load of cocking all your life. Anyway, muffle shovels like a load of pirates, Ready? Dig. They're out of sight, you see. And everybody had his own tree. And they got stuck in like a load of moles, going under these trees like hell. So I could run along and put the explosive under. See, if I'd got to do them and blow holes underneath them, he'd have heard me and we'd never got the damn job done. Anyway, we had all the explosive in about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, and they were lunch, you see. So I said to the foreman, now you get up the other side, give us about 100 and odd yards from the end tree with a big red flag in the middle of the road. Don't let anybody come down the A5, no matter what. So he took 2 blocks. I'm down at this end, and I used a single-shot exploder on the end of my Cortex, an electric detonator, instead of the bit of fuse, you see. So I could stand in the middle of the road with the red flag under my arm, like this. with me exploder in me hot, sticky little hand. But I've only got to twist it, and the detonator goes off, and the lot are up. You see? And I was standing there like that, and I heard a bit of a rumbling behind me, and one of these big lorries, Associated Lead, came up with a big chromium bumper bar, and he stuck that on my sciatic nerve. And put his face round. What's going on? What are you doing stopping the road? I'm in a bloody hurry, you see. A bit late to get up to the cafe for his lunch. I said, just half a moment, I twisted this exploder. And 17 trees took off. Straight in front of him. Well, it's an awe-inspiring sight when you're ready for it. When you're looking along the road and there's 17 bloody big trees, all of a sudden the lot leap in the air. You don't know whether you want a shave or a haircut. I have never seen a pair of eyes like it. They shot out like chapel hat pegs, you know. Wow! What the bloody hell was that, he said. I said, there you are, that would have scratched your paint, wouldn't it? The next time, beware. Oh, God. Talking about covering with muck, I did a job for Mr. M and a Mr. S. They must remain anonymous. They'll probably get shot. And they said, can you blow the colliery up? It's one of these old collieries, you know. The lot's got to go. The head sticks, the winding houses, and the chimney stack and all this. And the ground's got to be given back in a fit and proper condition. Can you imagine it? Oh, boy. Anyway, they said they'd got a chase side, a wheelbarrow, and half a dozen blokes. There's nothing like optimism. We're going to destroy the colliery, you know, flatten it. Oh, boy. They're more like an Irish comedy team. Anyway, can you do anything for us? It looks like I've got to do a lot for you, doesn't it? Thought I'd better grind it up pretty small. They haven't got much to shift it with. Anyway, we got stuck into it on the Monday, and there was concrete flying about, and I was shifting these buildings one time, and by Wednesday I'd shifted quite a few. We got one little office there, the only one with the phone in, with big white letters on Tuesday night, not to be blown up. You're going mad, you know. Wednesday morning, I went to a lot of trouble. Drilled the chimney, got all the explosive in. I was just looking around, and then the Mr. S of the partners came, and he's in this little office, and he's at the door. Hey, come here, he said. So I went over. He said, I said, I'm going to write the chimney off. He said, I thought you were. He said, just have a word with our insurance man. He's on the phone from Sheffield. So I picked the phone up. I said, hello. Oh, this is Hardcastle, Fruden Hardcastle, or something like that. You know, insurers. And he said, oh, about the chimney. He said, our man will come tomorrow. You'll be able to knock it down probably a week on Thursday. I thought, this bugger's joking, all right. What do you want me to do? Take all the explosive out? They never mentioned this. I said, just half a mo. Put it down. They've just put it at the side of the phone. I said, just stop there a minute. Will you, Mr. S? Like, so went out and just touched it off. Boom! I went back in and said, did you hear that? He said, aye, what was it? I said, chimney just fell down. He was doing it bloody not. Yes. Oh, aye, high winds, you see. He was... Ain't bloody hell he was. Anyway, that was only the start of me trouble. So, on the Thursday, I thought, well, I'll have it written off by weekend. Well, Friday morning, I'd only got one big winding house to do, and it's Staffordshire blue brick, you know, 5 courses thick. And I've blown the concrete engine bed inside, so I'll drop the building on it, and then they can shovel it up, because I haven't got to do the washing plant, because it's on steel legs, you know, with these washing plants, and about 2-story high, you know, with where they used to wash the coal. So he said, don't blow that up, we'll do that with the burners, you see, then it don't twist the metal. So I thought, this is a damn big building. Well, it took me, about a couple of hours, drill all the holes around it, you know. I thought, I'll give it a right thrutch and down, and I'm finished. And it's just about getting on for lunchtime, it was, I'd done a bit of sleep blowing across, and one of these Austin Cambridges come down and stopped. And the bloke got out, and it was Mr. M. Got his Ganex coat on, his best suit, heavy, knitted, yellow woolen gloves. Don't think his heater was working in the car, you know. Come across, you see. How are you, Mr. Bates? I said, very well, Mr. M. I said, you get a good view. I'm just going to write that one off. 25 foot high. Oh, bugger you, he said, I've heard about you this week. And he goes away somewhere. So I said, watch out for the bits. Boom, you know, and the bloody great building fell down, you see. And then the dust is slowly going away, and these blokes are sneaking back. One of them said, hey, look there, look at that. There, on the second floor fire escape landing of the washing plant stood Mr. M. Now, he'd gone in there to get a good view. They'd been washing coal in there since 1894. This was the nearest building we'd blown up to it. And then on the second floor, all the cross members joined to hold the roof up. They're that deep in, like black talcum powder. And boom, and it shoot the steel legs, and there must have been half a ton dropped on the floor. And it goes, poof, and he was straight out on the landing. And somebody said, Al Jolson. Head to foot. And as he come down, knocking himself, the whites of his eyes shone as though they'd been blancoed, you know. And those big yellow knitted gloves looked like 8-ounce boxing gloves. And he opened his hands at the bottom and somebody shouted, Mammy! I finished up 30 quid light on that job, yeah. I don't know whether you've ever been at home in the evening, you've had these peculiar telephone calls. But I got one Thursday night. Come up to the estates, as we have a very important person coming. No names mentioned, but he plays polo. You see, now this is the agent on one of the large estates, and he thinks you're that bloody thick, you're not supposed to know what he means, you see. He's trying to do a touch of the MI5. So I thought, well, I'd better go. This was on the Monday morning. So I went up to the estate. And when I got there, you drive into the estate yard, to the estate office, then knock on the door. And the voice, it's always the same, come. You never get come in, it's always come. So you go in, oh, what's the way the eyes see? Go inside, and when you're inside there, it's an oval table. Don't kid yourself, it's not a bloody round one. And it's oval. And the agent's sitting there in one of these chairs somewhat like this here, but with 2-inch blocks of wood under the legs. So he's sitting well over the table. Now the sub-agent, or his understrapper as we call him, sits on a similar chair, but with no blocks of wood. Sits a little lower, you see. The bloke that's bashing the typewriter at the bottom end on the sharp radius has 2 inches cut off his bloody leg. That's to keep his nose well down to the ribbon. I have never seen the poor bugger that brews the tea. He is obviously sitting in another room, cross-legged, on a cushion with a piece of string tied to his big toe. Like, you know, and he gets the message. Painful, too. Brew up. And anyway, I said, what is it, gentlemen? What do you want blowing up? You know, in my oafish sort of way. Oh, it's the large chestnut tree in front of the private chapel. It has to go. I said, oh. Stafford will show you where it is. That's the head forester. He's outside with his 2 henchmen, you know, with the smocks on and the turned-up shoes and the little Robin Hood hats, you know. Foresters, you say. But this particular morning, the hats were off, and they were looking very pensive. So I went outside. I said, what's up, fellas? Oh, we'll show you where it is. Follow us down. So they pile into the Land Rover, and we go off down this drive, and we come to the private chapel, and there, this damn big chestnut tree. It's a beautiful thing in full leaf. I said, that isn't it? Oh, yes, it's got to go. I said, why? Well, the very important person that was coming was taking residence in the hall and overlooking the polo paddocks. And looking across, he should have had a good view of the private chapel from his bedroom window. But it was obscured by this huge tree. Now, the gentry are different than us peasants. If you get a new motor or a new rifle or shotgun or whatever, something you're proud of, you say to your mate, what do you think about this? And he said, oh, why, I think it's grand, that. But the gentry don't. They have to wait for the other person to see it first. And when the other person's seen it, he remarks about it. And they say, oh, do come along and have a look. But if he can't bloody well see it, he's not going to remark about it, is he? So to make absolutely sure he saw it, it had got to go. But there were just a couple of snags here. The windows in this private chapel were reputed to be, and are, priceless. They were taken out when the war was on in case there was a bomb dropped 60 miles away. I got to blow a tree up within 25 yards. No wonder the foresters were looking pensive, because they said, don't crack a window. If you do, all our heads will roll. You see, you can imagine it, you see, because I'm back in me buggy and away back into the swamps. But they've got to live there. And they'd get the blame. You see, because they're rent-free, light-free, coal-free, so many eggs, so much milk. Get the toenails cut and a cup of senna on a Friday night. They looked at, they don't get any money, but they're happy. You know, they're happy. You see, and it might have upset the routine, you see, because somebody's going to give them a leathering if they start going. I said, all right, chaps, I'll be careful. So I had to quietly thrutch it, you know, a bit at a time, you know, thunk, and it sagged. Thunk, and it sagged again. I'm frigging about with it for about an hour and a half. It takes me about a quarter of an hour to write them off, you know. Boom, and it slowly fell over. And they laid about it with their matchets, you know. And it was pitiful to see the bloody looks on their faces, you know. I thought, right. So I got in my motor, and I went back up the drive. I thought, I'll just call in the estate office and let them know it's all over. I got up there and... Come. Went back in, there they sat, you know. I said, it's all over, gentlemen. I said, by the way, there's a few windows fell out the old chapel. Does it matter? Oh, God. No, they were like this. I said, I'm only joking. Like Queen Victoria, they were not amused. I waited 3.5 months for £8.10. Anyway.